Hello, this is Clarence Moye here with Alison Brie from Apple's Never Fall, which currently streams on Peacock. Alison, so nice to meet you. I've been a huge fan of yours for a very long time.
Thank you so much.
I
Nice to
I
meet you as well.
think I absolutely adored you in Glow as it did the entire world, and we're all sad that we haven't had that last season or that wrap up movie that we all want so badly.
Yeah, yeah, you and me both.
So I want to start with Apples Never Fall. You play Amy Delaney, and I had to when you joined. Of course, this is not on the recording, but when you joined, I said that's a very Amy background, and you said that Amy is more you than people realize. And I was gonna
Yeah,
ask, how are you influenced in sort of your understanding of Amy? Did you know people like Amy? But it's a part of you.
definitely it is. I not to stereotype, but I grew up in Los Angeles and I went to art school. So I've done my share of crystal buying and candle lighting in the moonlight. And uh yeah, I feel like I have an inherent understanding of that personality type, and that was helpful in terms of giving her some semblance of dignity and not judging her the way the rest of her family does. I think that um, I think that Amy really has just spent her life developing coping mechanisms to you know the effects of spending time with her family. And a big part of that is about sort of connecting to the spiritual world and sort of like releasing expectation, coming from this competitive tennis family, this very goal oriented family. Her big rebellion is, I'm not going to make plans. I want to actually connect to this other thing, maybe that's like out there in the world, and I want to let these other forces guide me, and I want to do breath work, and I want to do therapy, and I want to talk about my emotions, which is a foreign thing in my family. And I find all of that stuff really admirable, but everyone in the Delaney family, of course, just wants to make fun of it.
Right, exactly. Well, was it that connection, that kindred spirit in Amy that drew you to the role?
Sort of. I think it was more the fact that I haven't really played a role like that before. Uh, I've played a lot of characters who like being in control and kind of seek out that control, or even sometimes uh, that desire for control. They don't have an awareness of it, but it does exist within them. And so to me, Amy really felt like the opposite of that type of person. She sort of craves lack of control, and she's not seeking out chaos, but she is guided much more by her emotions than characters that I've played before, who are really able to like sort of harness their emotions and sometimes not show a lot of emotion. So the vulnerable sides of Amy are what attracted me to her. Just sort of thinking, I've never really gotten to tap into that, and I'm sure part of that was thinking, I've got that inside me, or maybe wondering, do I? Will I be able to tap into that? I think there were parts of Amy's chaotic emotionality that kind of scared me a little, and I think it's a good thing to do things that scare you a little.
Yeah, no, I absolutely get it. I want to talk a little bit about sort of the mechanics of the performance. One thing I often find when I talk to actors, they get a lot of inspiration from costumes. Certainly with your role in Glow. God, I knew I was going to do that. Glow, when your role in Glow, that
I
putting
auditioned for Glee. I was this close. Just I was did not get very close.
Glow, when you put on those wrestling outfits, certainly that gave you this empowerment, and you're just ready to kick ass. I mean, and how could you not with the hair and the costumes and all that stuff? In your Amy focused episode, the episode where you have the meditation for joy,
The
right?
Hope Circle.
Yes, the
Yeah.
Hope Circle. Thank you. You're Amy's wearing this sheer greenish gold outfit that I think is the most
Sort of
beautiful.
tie-dye,
Yeah,
hooded.
you looked beautiful. It was the most beautiful I've ever seen you look on camera. I was just so struck by that costume. It fit you so well. Does that help you interpret that character?
Clarence, thank you so much. I'm blushing now. Um, Definitely it helps. Definitely it helps. We had an extraordinary costume designer, Alison Fanger. I loved the way she curated Amy's closet, which was a mix of things you might expect that feel a little boho and tie dye and stuff like that, but also a lot of vintage. And also, you think about who is Amy as a person? She's collecting new clothes. Is she also having trouble getting rid of some of her older stuff? So there was some older, Delaney Tennis Academy stuff that sometimes you see mixed in when we're at the house. And that outfit that you mentioned for the Hope Circle, she brought back from Boulder, Colorado, where I actually had spent a night or two during a road trip in college. So, like, tapping into that, it was really helpful for the character and the hood. And, like, I think that in Amy's adult life, she gets a lot of power from the way that she dresses. And I totally agree with you. For my whole career, I think that I've been really inspired character wise by the costume department and these extraordinary costume designers, going back to Janie Bryant on Mad Men. Certainly that was a show that putting on the costume was all I needed to do to get into character as Trudy Campbell. It was like a light switch, and Glow, of course, the same. And honestly, Community, I could say the same about any job I've done. It's such an important part of the whole thing, and Amy was no exception.
You just rattled off my items from my next question, which are you like to work in ensembles, you thrive in ensembles. Glow, of course, Mad Men, Community, and Apples Never Fall is a huge, ensemble. The family working so closely together. What is it that you find that engages you and that energizes you from working in an ensemble?
Well, selfishly, I just like to work with people that are better than me. I think that it makes me a better actor. Um, Working in the it, I feed off of the energy of others. I think that I studied theater when I was younger, and that was such a strong community. Even when I was in high school, it was like a big part of my identity was being a theater kid, and what that community meant to me emotionally. And maybe I'm trying to recreate that every step of the way. I went to Cal Arts and studied theater there. And those connections with my fellow actors would fuel my excitement about the performances. And I think that it's been that way on the shows that I've gotten to work on. When I think about Community, I do think about how much I was able to learn about comedy, watching all of these incredibly funny people who worked in really different ways. And, working with Betty Gilpin on Glow, I'm just astonished by everything she does. And it's like I'm just get to take all these master classes. In this, I'm working with Annette Bening and Sam Neill and Jake Lacey. And even with our younger castmates, Essie Randalls and Connor Merrigan Turner, this is like an early job for them, but they're coming out of theater school and they have a different energy. It's so fun. It's just a really fun part of the job, I think. Um, yeah, playing off of those different energies.
Getting into the story a little bit. So there becomes a delicate balance in the kids where they have to emotionally navigate missing their mother, thinking she's dead, and then eventually thinking that their father is responsible for the disappearance of their mother. That must be, as an actor, that must be incredibly difficult to navigate, that tightrope of emotion that takes place in those situations, in those scenes.
Yeah, I guess so. It's interesting because the show, in addition to that, we're also following our characters' arcs in the past and the way that their lives were prior to their mother going missing. So there was a lot to track emotionally, but um sort of the through line, every character also has their own personal journey in terms of things that they're going to reveal from their life. Amy reveals things about her mental health, and that becomes a really cathartic experience for her. So I think what I liked about the material was that the way that you described that, right? Your mother's gone missing, and maybe your father murdered her. I couldn't sound more dramatic. But in the writing of this show and in the nature of getting to flash back between these two different timelines, I think we got to explore a lot of facets of the characters and what was going on for them emotionally. And it wasn't just melodrama, sometimes it was cathartic release. And also, there's the layer of just the family in general and the way that everyone relates to one another. So one sibling might be in the position of thinking, oh, wow, I definitely think dad did it, but my younger two siblings don't. And now how do I protect them or have these conversations with them? And can I give them a little bit of grace? And at the same time, because they don't have confirmation, in the form of, say, a body that their mother has been murdered, there's hope also. There's also, through all the darkness, this other layer of like, well, maybe it's not true. Hopefully it's not. I often would think that Amy, she's described as one who catastrophizes things. And I think that because she does that so early in the storyline, she actually is better armored to deal with the things that that sort of hit them later in the storyline. Whereas, like, her younger sister, Brooke, is really blindsided by this idea that it could have been their dad because she had a different experience in childhood also with that man. So I just throw out like 15 things that we were working through, but it's what made the material so rich and the writing so rich.
Absolutely. It's melodrama, but it is based in humanity. These are flawed people. These are people that are struggling not only with, the basic plot of the missing mother, but just the interactions of each other and learning to grow and exist as individual people, but also in this family unit, this very tight, stressful, uh, tennis focused family unit.
Totally. And I think that where we're catching them in this story is this pressure cooker situation. Someone said to me after watching the show, they said, wow, the Delaney kids really spend a lot of time together. And I said, well, they do right now, where we're catching them in this story because their mom is missing.
Mhm.
It's like, because there's a crisis going on, this family is forced to reckon with so much. I think in part just because they're spending so much time together. We all have coping mechanisms, I think, in terms of how we deal with our families and boundaries that we set and things like that. But in a crisis, you're kind of all together trying to figure things out, and that's where we see a lot of the family dynamic and the different ways in which the siblings can relate to one another or have resentments towards one another, or their differences as well as their similarities and how much they love each other.
Yeah. You talked about learning from other actors. You talked about working with Annette, with Sam, with the younger actors, coming out of theater school. Um, how did this stretch you? How did this experience stretch you as an actress?
Well, watching Annette and Sam, I mean, I would get chills on set. Especially, I've really looked up to Annette for so long as an actor, and to see the way she works on set just confirmed a lot of things that I've suspected about her and about what it means to really be a true professional. She she's so joyful in the way that she works and so generous, her and Sam both. And then so able to be tapped into the scene, like generous as actors within the scene in terms of with each other, and then also really collaborative and empowering themselves to ask questions and make discoveries. I think at its best, even in the format of television that moves so quickly, this thing making art, making TV, making things for people to watch is like this. It can be an exploration, right? Where we really are trying to, it's not just like, here's the blocking, great, let's shoot it. I think there could be this kind of deeper exploration of the characters. And in that way, I think I learned a lot too from this character. That sounds so lame to say, maybe. Here's what I learned from Amy. But I think that I myself could be sort of guarded in terms of emotions. I think there are ways that Amy moves through the world as a character that sort of changed the way that I normally work and prepare in some ways, and that was kind of interesting. I don't know.
So, last question for you. What was your favorite moment to film within the series?
Well, I have to give two answers, but the first one is, um, there's a opening scene in episode 3, the Amy episode. That's Annette and I sitting in the car.
Mhm.
It's a flashback of Amy's having a breakdown, having a moment, and her mother's comforting her. And it was just extraordinary. It just felt wonderful to shoot. I felt so protected by Annette, like within the scene and also outside of the scene as an actor. I felt like she was so encouraging and giving me space, but all like truly, I felt so connected to her, and it was really beautiful. And when we finished shooting that scene, I did sort of turn to her and say, sort of tell her how much it meant to me, which even that alone felt meaningful, to me, to be able to say that to someone in the moment. So that was very meaningful to me. But I also think about this scene in episode 5, Troy's episode, where there's a big blowout fight between Jake Lacey and Sam Neill's characters, and Annette, and the whole family sort of is shook, and Annette's character gets involved, and big things come to light. We shot that scene over 2 days, which eventually, by the end of it, we all were like, I'm tired of doing this scene. But I just will remember it forever. I really had chills watching the three of them, Annette and Sam and Jake. Like, it felt like watching theater, because my character really is sort of just watching and taking it in. I
Sure.
don't have a lot to say in that scene. And I got to sort of witness this scene, which started one way, and sort of we rehearsed it. We had these rehearsals on the weekend. It had a life of its own, and it involved the whole family, which, whether we were saying something or not, every character is affected in their own way very deeply. And so that was very cool, like as a almost like an audience member, to witness the performances that were happening, and just the family dynamics at large.
Excellent. Well, Allison, it's been an honor and a privilege to talk to you. Thank you so much for the time. I loved your performance in Apples Never Fall, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much, Clarence. Have a good
Take care.
one.
You too.